But now the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, have announced plans to develop a new currency.
How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about BRICS nations potentially developing a brand new currency which could sink the value of the US dollar. Now, what does this mean for your average everyday citizen of the USA? Well, America, as it stands right now, could become Venezuela overnight. What do I mean by that? Well, if the value of your dollar plummets, if it's destroyed, you're going to need a lot of these dollars to buy basic things. You have a wheelbarrow full of these paper dollars to go buy a loaf of bread, a piece of steak, or whatever you want to buy. Okay, try buying a loaf of bread for 100 US dollars or 200, 500, whatever kind of amount you can imagine in your mind. Will it get that serious? Maybe not. But before we go down that road, let's back up a little bit to explain exactly what's going on here. Now, $1 million question, what is BRICS? As I said in the beginning, this is an acronym for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. They formed an, I don't want to say alliance. It's kind of a strong word. When you're talking about allies and whatnot, that's a very strong word. So I'll say they formed a consortium, a group, a collective, a co-op of sorts. And what they're going to do is trade with each other in their own currencies and or one currency that's going to be new or a currency that already exists. And this currency will most likely be digital. You're talking about CBDCs, that central bank digital currency. And as a matter of fact, the US announced its own version of a CBDC called FedNow, which will come out in July. This is the beginning of a cashless society. It's a way for them, whoever they may be, to track what you do, to control the money from a computer. And also the currency that they're going to have from the BRICS nations will allegedly be backed by gold, unlike the US dollar, which is backed by nothing. Actually, the US dollar is backed by the US military, the US government, and nations' confidence in the dollar as a reserve currency. Here's an example of what's already been going on. Like right now, it's not even about a theory. This is happening today. Brazil and China are trade partners because China has a lot of people, 1.3, 1.4 billion. Brazil has a lot of food they can produce. So there's a lot of trade going on between the two nations. Now, normally when Brazil and China trade, they convert their currencies first to US dollars and exchange dollars. But now what they're going to do is just use their own currencies. The Brazilian reais, I know I'm pronouncing that wrong, but they're going to trade in the Brazilian currency and also the Chinese yuan rather than using US dollar. So that's going to weaken the value of the dollar. And if the BRICS nations follow through on this, that's going to further weaken the US dollar. And it's not just those countries in BRICS. Please understand me. When you're talking about South Africa, are you talking about South Africa only? Or are you talking about pretty much all of Africa? Contrary to what some may consider to be a popular belief, Nigeria is not the giant of Africa. It's South Africa. You know, you're talking about sub-Saharan, it's South Africa. So a lot of satellite nations that look to SA as the big dog are going to be on board too. Namibia, Botswana, Mozambique, Nigeria, a lot of West Africa, a lot of Sudan, South Sudan. They're going to be on board. Okay, Zimbabwe, all of that, Zambia, they're going to be on board. Same thing with China and all their satellite nations. You're talking about Mongolia, Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Cambodia, Laos. They're going to be on board as well. Russia, same thing. You're going to have Belarus, the new part of Ukraine they got, the Black Sea area, some of the old Soviet satellites, Kazakhstan, they're going to be on board as well. So this is going to be a very serious thing if the US dollar is no longer the world's reserve currency and BRICS have their own system that's digital and backed by gold. No more cash and no more dollar as the world's reserve currency. Now, there's a few roadblocks here. There's a few things that could happen that could not make this deal go all the way through. The main thing is that some of these nations are US allies. This is why I didn't want to say that BRICS is an alliance. That's a very strong word. Last I checked, Brazil was an ally. Maybe I'm wrong about that. India is an ally. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Okay. China, not so much. Russia, obviously not. So there's going to be some issues. I'm not really sure how this is going to happen, but it is happening. They are having a meeting in South Africa, I think, in the summertime. And like I was saying earlier, we already came out with our own version of the CBDC. It's going to come out right at the same time they're going to have theirs. Oh, one more piece of information. This is all kind of tied into the whole Ukraine war because Russia is having to fight that war because of the U.S. and other Western countries' interference. Please be clear, if not for the U.S. interfering in this whole matter, Ukraine would have been gone a long time ago. It would have already belonged to Russia. And really, if you want to go deeper into it, if not for the encroachment of NATO, and by the way, Finland just became part of NATO. Finland has a very long border with Russia. And to the south of Finland, you have the Gulf of Finland. And to the north of Lithuania, which is also a NATO state, they have a little bit of a slip right there. And when you go into the Gulf of Finland, what's right there? St. Petersburg, Russia. And what just happened with St. Petersburg, Russia about a year ago? Nord Stream 2, because the Nord Stream 2 pipeline came from St. Petersburg through the Gulf of Finland, through the Baltic Sea, and then over to Germany. Somebody blew that up. I wonder who that was. Different story. I digress. The whole point is that a lot of things are happening right now. Russia is being surrounded. They got sanctions put on them. China the same way. So a lot of nations that are not Western are going to kind of link together. And rather than dealing with the U.S. and NATO trying to encroach upon them, trying to put sanctions on them, and also the instability of the dollar, the instability of certain Western nations that say, okay, you know what? We'll have our own currency over here. We're going to have the majority of the world on it because understand this. China and India by themselves represent about, 2.7 billion people out of the 7 billion people in the world? 2.7 billion out of the 7 billion in the world. There's a map and a picture. If I can find that, I'll throw it on the screen. There's a circle over there in the east, like right by India, China, Southeast Asia. They said in that circle, it's a big circle, but it's a small circle. In that circle, you have more humans than live anywhere else in the world. So population-wise, China is rising, middle class is rising, Indian middle class is rising. They don't need the U.S. as much because some would say, well, hey, ABL, they can't shut us out of the system. They can't create their own currency. They still need our dollar because we are big consumers. We are big innovators. Well, so is China, 1.4 billion people. India, 1.3 billion people. They have their own middle class growing. They have their own consumption concerns. They have their own needs over there, things that they want. Rather than relying upon us and our currency and our military and our innovation and our intelligence, they're going to have their own thing. And what does that mean for us? It can mean very dark times ahead. Some say it's going to be a recession. Some say we're going to have inflation. That might be the least of our concerns. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? How do you feel about these BRICS nations developing their own currency, which from what I'm reading is going to be digital and backed by gold? No more cash. And it's going to be one currency for all these nations. Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. How do you feel about the U.S. having their own thing? Is it only going to be the U.S. on that from the Federal Reserve? Or are we going to have other nations on it? Is it going to be a West versus East type thing? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys may or may not know where I stand. This is a direct response to the West. I don't want to say bullying the world, but kind of bullying the world. We don't need to be everywhere trying to be the police, trying to set up colonies and things of that nature. I'm not saying I want it to happen because if it does happen, that's going to mean it's going to be a bad day for us. But this is part of the reason why I say we shouldn't be everywhere, because there's going to be a reaction. If we could just, be home and worry about domestic issues and not worry about Ukraine, not worry about random countries overseas, worry about more domestic issues, that'd be better. Okay. We're sending manufacturing. Like, we are worried about all these other nations trying to interfere with their politics. And at the same time, we rely upon these nations to feed the consumption habit of the United States. It doesn't make any sense. We need to be more self-reliant and not relying upon the world, because the world will keep rocking with or without us. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.